You're
You
wrong
say
there.
no.
You're very wrong. You're
Yeah,
very wrong. I would say half my tribe, the Afrikaner, they
don't.
will reach out once a year or they will reach out here and there, but they
Hmm.
fundamentally do not want black people near them. And the test is when you drive into Kruger National Park for your holiday and you see there's a black family in the house next to your house. I would say half my tribe is not excited when they see that. They don't want to try and have this closeness. They want to be next to each other, separate, and then on occasion we'll do a visit to the other church or help someone that's in need. Very seldom, but I think what's made a comeback the past 10 years is really an unapologetic preference to live apart from each other.
My guest is Schalk van Heerden, co-founder of the Beter-einders movement. I better say that right. Beter-einders, not the Bittereinders, the Betereinders. The Betereinders is all about fostering understanding and collaboration between white Afrikaners and black South Africans, creating a space where dialogue and shared responsibility can help shape or more unite us into the future. Welcome to the program, Schalk.
Afternoon, Johan. You said that better than I could have, so thank you for the intro.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that to me, so I thought I'll make a point of that because there is in fact something like the Betereinders in South Africa as well. Can you quickly explain?
Yeah, I think we wanted to play on that heritage of the Anglo-Boer War, where
Mm,
the Afrikaners, we lost the war, and there was a small group that refused to lose, so they called the Betereinders historically.
mm, mm.
And we wanted to draw on their courage, but not their blindness and stupidity. So we thought we want something about them, and then we just shifted it. Instead of being bitter, we want to work towards a better ending. So
Yeah.
Betereinders literally means a better ending. Even if my tribe's not in charge of the country anymore, we can still fight for a better ending and become better and more whole, etc. So we're not Betereinders because we think we're better or better than others. We want
Yeah.
to become better.
All right. We want to get to know you a little bit. Just one question. I couldn't figure it out for myself. I read somewhere that you're part of the "Not in My Name" declaration, but I couldn't get confirmation of that. So, are you or are you not? Did you sign or did you not sign?
I didn't sign.
You didn't sign.
I didn't sign, but in 90%. I'm like-minded with that movement.
Mm,
And what happened is we were one of the very first people to be invited to sign the declaration. And I share their sentiment of telling Trump, not in my name. There's even a CNN program where I'm recorded before that came out, where I literally say, not in my name. But then what bothered me in the letter, and I told them, is specifically naming AfriForum and Solidariteit, saying they don't speak for us, blah, blah, blah. I, I was just open to them saying that I can make my statement and confirm my beliefs without opposing and being antagonistic towards another group in South Africa. So I think that's where, and that's why I reach out to everyone. So it kind of links to our opening sentence. Because of that particular point that they made,
mm.
I just said, I'll skip this one. But they're my friends. I see them all the time. We work together. And I think we 90% like-minded actually with that group, but I made a point of not signing, and a bunch of my friends are happy about that, and a bunch are not happy with that. But I'm
Yeah.
very relaxed to say they're my friends, but I didn't sign that one. I gave it a skip. But earlier in last year, February, when we became refugees as Afrikaners, and I don't know if you've picked it up, we made massive billboards, 10 of them in Gauteng, which said not USA, but USA and hashtag not a victim, Betereinders. So
Yeah.
that sentiment of this letter, I think we're living it every day. Just that particular articulation coming, we didn't sign up for that.
All
Yeah.
right. I want to get to know you a little bit. Uh, you were a teenager when South Africa became a democracy. So I guess a young kid still under apartheid. At what age? Just give me an idea. How old were you when Nelson Mandela walked free?
Yeah, mine is easy to remember because I matriculated when we won the first World Cup, 95. So
Hmm.
everything happened when I was in high school.
Uh-huh.
And I was
Yeah.
lucky when I was 17, I had a quick trip to Kenya, and I couldn't believe there's a country run by black people. Driving, flying, police, alles. So it was quite a shock to me. So I think Kenya opened my eyes just in a week. They did make me eat rabbit stew after being friends with the rabbits, but I'll forgive them for that. But Kenya kind of opened my eyes when I was 17. And the biggest effect, I was in a crisis because we were taught you become a man in the army. So I was one of the first groups that didn't go to the army anymore. And that explains maybe a lot of my life journey, adventure, trying to do difficult things is just this search to try and grow up and become a man, and
Yeah.
a man
Yeah.
that's at home in his skin color and his body and his country. So yeah, that was all in high school. My dad was a farmer, so I knew about kindness, but not necessarily fairness in a broader sense when I was
Mhm.
young. So I was never a rude, antagonistic type of person, but I had so many blind spots and racism in me, which was a fun journey to unlearn some of it. Some of it I'll
Yeah.
still unlearn later.
Yeah. 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 Well, what was your understanding of apartheid?
Apartheid, very much something that actually still exists for me now, and apartheid triggers people. So I just in English I'll talk just about apartness. And there's just literally the separation of people into soort soek soort, kind with kind in a way, like each
Hmm.
subgroup trying to stick to each other. So that's the biggest thing. We were just removed from each other. And as a youngster, I didn't understand the depth of the inequality and the hurt and the dehumanization and all of that. For me, it was just an apartness. And now the great irony is, like, I'm in the NG Kerk. I call myself a missionary to the NG Kerk.
Yeah.
But it's basically still the same. Like, we still gravitate towards apartness, just being next to each other instead of mixed. And that so that would be the first thing that pops in my mind early on and still lingering today is, and in Afrikaans I'd like to say apartheid. I add a which refers just to a tendency to prefer being apart
Hmm.
than Rassi Erasmus in one of his videos does this, and he says we are intertwined in a nice Afrikaans accent. And I
Yeah.
think that's the opposite for me is an intertwinedness. And I'm into that, and I understand that others aren't, but I'm into being intertwined, to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
Rassi's word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm trying to just get at is, of course, I grew up another time. I'm way older than you, so I really grew up under the apartheid system. And reflecting about it back to the years that I grew up, we never really actually knew that we grew up in under apartheid. I think it was called separate development. That was probably part of it, um, but we never questioned it. I think that
No.
also has to do with the fact that we were never brought up, they never taught us to do critical thinking. It wasn't part of our education. So I'm sort of trying to
Yeah,
figure when Nelson Mandela came on the scene, when he was let out of prison, you're a young man.
yeah. It's
What
such
did
a
it
good
mean to you?
question.
And what do you talk? How do you and your age group friends
Yeah.
discuss
I
this, talk about this?
I like your question a lot. It takes me back. I think firstly when Mandela came out, we didn't know much about him. To your point, we were shielded a bit. And the magic was of apartheid is like the little triangle. What you were taught at school and in the church and in the home was the same thing. And when your teachers and headmaster and your dominie and elders and your parents and family tell you the same thing, I think that triangle is very, very powerful. So we were raised in that. And so when Mandela came out, I wasn't too much triggered. Oddly enough, I have a few funny memories. The one is that Mandela coming out is one thing, but seeing Winnie Mandela next to him, I knew she's bad. So Mandela didn't bother me, but the wife, I just knew, hey, that one, we must watch out. And then I have weird memories, like there was a competition about who's the devil. Is it Jane Naidu or Desmond Tutu? So never trust a man wearing a dress. And there was all these, I have memories of, I have, sorry, that's very bad to say in the global context. It's just a joke. South Africans, we
It's not
make
a very
jokes.
woke thing to say.
No, no, and it's worse. Like if I'd go back to my memories, people would call Desmond Tutu ag daai houtkop biskop. You know, and
Mm.
so I grew up exposed to a very blasé type of things, and only later on did I understand the depth of some of the stuff we were saying and thinking and doing.
Yeah.
So it was a very gradual and then a vivid memory for me was my resistance to the new flag. Because I'm a patriotic, loyal guy and I love the
Yeah.
Oranje Blanja
Yeah.
Blauw. The first little book I wrote is also looking like this. I hope I don't get cancelled. Time to track. So I love the old flag, and then when we had this new flag, I was disturbed, and that transition, this and that, and then I think I was at the semi-final of the World Cup against France in Durban, and people singing Shoshaloza, hugging each other, white and black. There was a World Cup turning point, I think, socially among my age group. So we didn't
Hmm.
discuss politics and stuff, maybe jokes about Tutu and fear of Winnie, and then the flag bothered us. But then with the World Cup, we started talking about this thing called the Rainbow Nation. That
Yeah.
time the rainbow wasn't what it is now. But I think we almost legitimately went through the transformation process, not the funny transformation where you lose your job, the different buying into the new South Africa. And I think like Steve Hofmeyer has this great song, Ghetto Song, where he sings about you, my friend, and a black child and a white child. The one has more toys. It's an amazing song, Ghetto Songs from
Yeah.
Steve Hofmeyer. So everyone was kind of on that wave. And then I'm a religious guy, so I linked that wave of naaste liefde, brotherly love, or a wider, bigger, everyone's God's children. I think I took the political wave of the 90s and I linked it to my Christianity, and then that became deeply embedded in my DNA to a point where theologically then I was changed, not just socially, if I can put it that way. And I mean, recently we did a little poll of with Betereinders, and that one showed 90% of the Afrikaners we interviewed said they're Christians, and so I think sometimes we so woke and polite that we forget what big part faith plays in the country. Even if you're an ass, but you say you're a Christian, it's part of our vocab. And
Yeah.
with me and my generation, I think we did both sides, the social part, the religious part, and then I think we were changed.
What took you to the church? You became a reverend.
Firstly, I was out for 20 years, so if anyone knows how it feels to be die donor in vir die kerk, it's me. Like I was very I have lots of issues with the church, and I left for 20 years, and I did development studies and got a master's in that. So I
Is
was
it during your 20s now that we're talking about Schalk?
20s and 30s because I went to live
Ah,
in Mozambique for a while, and I studied something else. My first degree was theology, and then I left after finishing my degree. I left that and the church, and then I lived a very crazy, interesting life in Africa. And then after a long time, I felt called back to my own tribe, the Afrikaner, saying I've been now 20 years with black people, and it was very good for me. But go back to your tribe and be a breach. And I thought, where the hell is my tribe? And I looked for the Afrikaners and I realized they still exactly where I left them in 1994, and that's in the Dutch Reformed Church. So I went back to the Dutch Reformed Church, not because I liked the church. I went back to to minister to my Afrikaner tribe and tell them, listen, because by that time things have changed. People became angry, resentful. The change in the 90s was reversed, etc.
yeah,
So I wanted
yeah.
to go back and say, listen, we can be fully at home in Africa, even if you're white. And that was part of my calling towards, yeah, I don't want to go into religion too much now with you. But I was called back to the church to make a difference against this apartness that crept back and that I think steals a lot of our joy.
There's some stuff that I miss now, just to help me to understand the whole, uh, call it evolution. Um, you grew up under apartheid. You obviously
Yes.
could and was able to define what it means at the time. You must have been aware that I think back in the late 60s and somewhere in 73 or something like that, again, the United Nations called apartheid a crime against humanity, declared it a crime against humanity. Then comes the moment of the freedom of Nelson Mandela, and suddenly you are now in this multicultural rainbow thing. So, was there a point at which you said, I take distance from apartheid because it was truly a crime against humanity? Or I'm trying to figure out how do you go, because we're talking about two extremes here. The
Yeah.
extreme, the extremity of apartheid, but we were really grew up in different societies, different worlds. And then suddenly Mandela in a very short period of time, and then suddenly we are the celebrated rainbow nation. So tell me about that. What happens in your mind then? How do you deal with it? How do you understand it? How do you, in your discussions with your friends and family, in Afrikaans, hoe verwerk je dit? How do you
Process.
process it all? Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'll take a very relevant example because that example persists to this day, and I'm sure you've come across it. Is every week in my life now in 2026, I hear Afrikaners say, I'm tired of saying I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask, obviously, oh wow, I didn't know. There's very few people I know that said they sorry. Who did you say sorry to? Tell me about
Yeah.
it. If you're now fatigued by saying sorry so much,
Mm-hmm.
how was it? Who did you say sorry to? What was it like? And then normally no one ever said sorry. So what they mean is, I'm tired of feeling guilty for who I
Mm-hmm.
am. They're not
Mm-hmm.
really tired of saying sorry because we didn't do that. We skipped big parts of the TRC and what was supposed to happen after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
happened in my mind, again theologically, is whether I say sorry or not, my black friends, and I'm overexposed to black people, but they're like, listen, dude, I don't even want your sorry, so let's just get on with it. So, but then I had a big aha moment where, and that's part of my processing, is I can say sorry. If someone wants a sorry and it helps them, I'll say it 1,000 times a day. That it
Yeah.
doesn't do anything
Yeah.
to me. But I got to a point where in my inner room, in my quiet space, I had a sincere sorry to God. And I always want to use a swear word so that I can show that it's not some fake religious nicety. I had to say sorry for God that we messed up his creation, his country, his continent. So the crime against humanity is one thing. Saying sorry to black people is one thing. But if you believe in a creator, then the first sorry is to him. And then that brought a lot of freedom and healing and forgiveness for me. And that was for me a good place to start. Is my biggest offense I caused wasn't or was part of wasn't just against black people. We destroyed the whole plan, and we killed the humanity to a point where I was nice to black people in a very similar way that I was nice to the animals on our farm. And it sounds very rude, but to this day, I don't like people just handing out soup. And that's because you feed your own dogs at your house. So for me, as an Afrikaner, there was never a lack of kindness, but it was a very top-down, almost dehumanized kindness. And my life changed when just before I finished school, I was in a private school in Durban, and a black kid kicked my butt with debating. And I was shocked coming from the farm,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's a black dude that's smarter than me, and
Mm-hmm.
he properly whipped me. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't shy to admit that. And I didn't think, I thought black people can be nice and work hard, but I didn't know they could be smarter than me. And it's almost an embarrassing account, but that was part of my growing up and healing. And I had to learn every single thing, be surprised. Oh, they can drive. Oh, they can do accounting. Oh, blah, blah, blah. So for me, the journey wasn't just one about, like, I repented to God, fine, forgiven, let's move on. But then for me, I would rather phrase my journey as a discovery and an adventure to meet humans that's amazing. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to tolerate black people. I enjoy black people. Like, and every year when I leave a bit of my nonsense and I discover more, about individuals, cultures, I get richer. So I would phrase my transformation journey or my growth is towards a bigger humanity, and with this metaphor of we are all God's children. So I'll be excited when I get to, if there's a heaven, to get to heaven and see other black people there. I won't turn around and say, "Hey, where's hell?" Because I wasn't expecting this here. So
Yeah.
I think it's about humanity, a shared humanity that I buy in deeply, and that's why I can easily read Steve Biko or Robert Sobukwe. I find it very encouraging. Bram Fisher. I learn as I go along about our past because we were naive and a bit blind when we were in it. So we understand the rest, I think, as we move on.
I read somewhere the other day that during the TRC or just after the TRC, there was a sort of a registry created, an open book, I guess, with the invitation to the people, to whites, to sign the book, to say sorry in a sense, and if they so wish, to share their stories, and that book's been, I guess, in some space in some building in Pretoria for many, many, many years, but throughout the years, only a few hundred people have ever bothered to actually go and sign this registry of acknowledgement of the past at the very, very least. So
Yeah, I've never
are
I've
there,
never heard of it.
yeah, it's an existence.
I
There's
believe.
an official registry that is an invitation to people that if you
Yeah.
want to say sorry or if you want to tell your story, here is a little space for it. And it is, and so far as I could establish, it is virtually today, 30, 31 years later, virtually an empty book. Nobody has put a
Yeah.
signature in this book, which
But
brings me
Johan,
back to your story. I want to focus just on the word sorry.
yeah.
Do, do you think 30 years, 31 years, whatever we are now, post freedom in South Africa, the end of apartheid, do you think that it is still somehow needed for white South Africans? I'm an Afrikaner, so I always talk more or less on behalf of Afrikaners for us to say sorry. And to when we say sorry, to know what we're saying sorry for.
Yeah, you see, we're living in a time where the word has so much baggage and is so out of fashion that
Mm-hmm.
you'll find very few fools to that will say that we need to say sorry. The first thing I would say is,
So you've just described me what the audience will describe me as here now for asking that question. A fool.
yeah. So the first thing I'll say
I
is,
understand it. That's why I'm asking the question.
yeah, I would much rather use my own word and say I'll leave that sorry book empty if
Mm-hmm.
I can live every day with a fresh respect and
Mm-hmm.
seeing each human in front of me. And I've got so many black friends, very radical ones, PAC, EFF, that. And if we have a couple of beers and I get into the inner sanctuary and I ask them, Ufunani, what do you actually want from me as a Mlungu? Then they'll say, all I want is to be treated as equally human. And it's not just treated as equally human, it's feeling equally human. And I think this is a massive segue I'll take into maybe saying the word that no one is allowed to say, racism. Why racism isn't just being rude to another tribe, is the effect of apartheid and everything. There's a very big superiority among many whites and an inferiority among black people. And that is why if I now call you Johan, if I call you a baboon, you won't even be bothered with me because we don't have the same history of being dehumanized. So when I think of respect, the way I look, the way I listen, the way I see another person as an equal human, that is for me much bigger than saying sorry. And then people will feel the type of sorry in a sadness because if someone I work with Arsenal Football Club a lot over the years. And if an English Sauti, not a Sauti, a proper English, if they were to say to me and hear my history of who in my family died in concentration camps, and this young little English bloke that knows nothing, if he listens to my story and he sees some of the artwork in my house that's from the concentration camp, and he says, Gee, Schalk, I'm so sorry. That's so effed up. That is so bad. That's horrible. I'm so sorry. Gee, we can just repent, mourn, and hope we'll never do that again. Then that's just type of a sympathy and a posture that's a sorry of humanity, not a sorry of taking guilt, like I did it. But I think black people are smarter than us with that, because if you now drop your mug of coffee, a black person will say sorry, sorry that it fell, kind of thing. Not
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't cause it, but we only want to say sorry when we are to blame and when
Hmm.
we are directly liable. And I think we that's why we have different ideas about sorry. Um, so maybe sadness is a better word to use, and a resolve to never repeat again. Yeah, so I can say sorry 30 years on, and I never voted like you bad guys. I never voted under apartheid. So in a
Yeah.
way I can distance myself. But for my tribe, for humanity, I can say sorry. It doesn't take anything away from me, and I don't feel paralyzed by guilt if I say that. I say that I would say that, or live that rather, more about to cross the distance. Same way I can say sorry to women for men being assholes. Um, Sorry, if someone was
Yeah.
badly treated. So I'm a weird guy. Like for me, sorry normally is something beautiful and healing and brings us together.
Let me give you my reaction to that,
Sure.
Skulk. I get the impression of somebody who's pretty much emancipated. That's an individual thing. It's about you yourself. That's not the group thing. It's not who we are as a people or as a group or an ethnic group or a folk or whatever you want to call it, as a nation, whatever the case might be.
Mhm.
Now, what you say, though, is, though, almost for me, in my understanding of it, and help me out here now, a little bit of a contradiction in terms of creating an organization called Betereinders then with set goals. Because you've almost sort of suggested to me that you don't personally have the need for saying sorry. Perhaps you suggest that that's also not the applicable thing to do for the people out there. But somewhere along the line, you still create a Betereinders because I would imagine that somewhere you feel the need for us to get together and to talk and to process our history and to process who we are and where we want to go to in the future. And in all of that, the word sorry seems to me is a word that you could not potentially ignore.
That's a very great question, Johan, that you're asking. And I think the clue is in our name, and we didn't get there by accident, because we got there through hours and hours of speaking to people. And we are beter einders, not beter histories or
Hmm.
better past,
Yeah, you're going
better
there.
beginning.
Yeah.
We messed up, and we as an organization don't go around pushing the sorry. We sometimes joke and say we live the sorry, but we're much more inclined to say how do we live for a better future.
Hmm.
And in that process, if it's real and it's sacrificial and it's costly, it's not a cheap type of covering rainbowism or cheap grace or something. If you pay that price of working together, really together for the future and living together, there'll be plenty of sorries that comes along if it comes along, but we don't go out hunting for it. But if you now ask any black person that's come across our path, do you think these oaks are sorry about apartheid? They'll say yes, although we didn't use those words as a in, because black and white people, I think, in South Africa are a bit over the sorry. We want to see action. We want to see resolve going forward. So I think if you understand me correctly, the posture of a sorry and a posture of a respect is better translated looking forward, showing the shared humanity than looking back, analyzing, talking. We can't talk the past that it feels any better, but we can, I think, fundamentally change the future. The irony is these people who don't want to ever say sorry, even if they ask or whatever, they're creating a divided future that will require another sorry and another sorry. And I want to live in a way that no one wants a sorry from my three little kids, that is 1, 4, and 6 years old. If daddy does it right, they'll be free to just be at home. But if that is in denial, causing more problems, we'll be we'll be talking about sorry for generations, and I don't want that. I'll rather take it on the chin so that my kids can be more free,
Yeah, yeah.
emotionally and ethically even.
But if we truly want to understand each other and truly reach each other, we cannot ignore our history. I think you would agree with me. And you just made a reference to you telling the Soti, the Englishman, about the Boer concentration camps. And I would suggest then to you that would sound to me like that is part of what forms your identity. So if
Yes.
that's so, and it's an identity that I'm required to respect, it's my identity as well, and I wish to have respect for that identity, then certainly Black people should have the respect and have the requirement of also manifesting their identity, which is built on their historic experience.
Absolutely. And now I'll give you clickbait, which will make everyone angry at me and angry at you for platforming me. And to show that respect, like I can mourn the concentration camps and the Boer War and killing so many thousands of us, the same way Black people can do it. So I'm one of the very few Afrikaners that know a lot of struggle songs. I listen to Black struggle songs in my car when I'm on the long road through the Free State and the Karoo and whatever. And that's why I'm probably the only oak in the country that's not bothered with Malema singing Kill the Boer at all, because I understand the context where it comes from. And all I mean, most of those struggle songs have Dubuli Bunu somewhere in it. Jabula Mamangi Shai Bunu, Be a Happy Mother When We Kill the Whites. So like those struggle songs, for example, is is my recognition of where people come from, and if it can be part of their healing. I think Juju is just being naughty and insincere when he sings it for political gain, but that's an example of when you say we can move forward only if we acknowledge the past. I mean, I do it in such a big way that even something like that should make me uncomfortable. We played at our Betereinders braai in the township in a
Yeah,
lager on 16 December. We'll play Black struggle songs. And that's the type of delving deep that can bring freedom. So we're not trapped in fear. And I'm sure when you have your interviews with people, you sometimes get a sense of people are angry, fearful, stressed. They want to fight because they feel under attack. They don't come across as free. And I and the Betereinders that do fun things with me, we feel free. And it's yeah. So the past, I go to Apartheid Museum regularly, taking groups there, talking. And now the problem with that, if I can just be brutal again, is when I have some money or resources, Malema will say white monopoly capital. If I have some resources, I prefer going to black townships and making a difference there in 80% of the cases, because that's 80% of our country, and that's the group that was most disadvantaged due to my tribe's history. So, and those are also my brothers and sisters. And what I'm getting every week of my life is when I, because of this historical facts, um, go and reach out to poor black people living in shacks, not just chatting, but making an actual difference. You'll see all these Afrikaners telling me, "Oh, you traitor, why don't you help your own people?" So they only want me to do charity towards white poverty. And
yeah,
that is absurd in our head. If you still think only white people is your people, and you want to live in South Africa with all the benefits of your passport, the Springboks and that, and you don't view black people as your people, and you get criticized for working against black poverty. I mean, then really something in our heads got screwed up. And that's got nothing to do with being woke or liberal or whatever. That's just to make a safe country. We need a healthy country. And we haven't fixed stuff that we promised to fix in the Constitution in 94. Sorry, I'm getting a bit
Yeah.
serious there, but I think it's such an important point that although we look forward, we do so with full knowledge of where we come from.
Yeah.
En in Afrikaans sê ons jy moet kan pa staan. And I don't want to be a lafaard, a coward that will place the historical burden on someone else. I'll take that punch. I'll be committed to heal the perception so that my tribe, the Afrikaner, can be loved in South Africa with integrity. And that can only be done by regmaak, by fixing and righting the wrongs. In boer maak 'n plan. What's wrong with that? Let's fix it. It's not about being like a pathetic, oh, I'm so sorry about apartheid. No one cares for little words like that. We
Yeah.
have to show our attitude.
What you say to me, Schalk, sounds quite. Let me. The trauma of the past is profound, and I'm just worried. The question, sort of, and it's unformulated in my head, is I'm going to ask you this way. What do you actually then do when you go out to the townships, when you have that barbecue, within the context of this saying sorry and telling each other stories and things like that? Because I just wonder, I kind of think that we need to really sit down and talk to one another in a very profound fashion. And I
I'll
can
give
see it happening around the barbecue fire.
Yeah.
But it's what we talk about something that is my understanding from Black people. I'll tell you this little story, and then I think you'll be able to. I'll give you the space to respond to it. I spoke to the woman who was Nelson Mandela's last chef. Can't remember her name now. Had an interview with her some years ago. And she told me a little bit of her life story. And part of that life story was that she worked for quite a wealthy white family as in the house, a huishoudster, what do you call it, the maid in the house. And I would imagine probably a cook as well, because she became later this famous woman who cooked Nelson Mandela his favorite food. And she said to me that the one thing that she wants to share with me, she lived in a little room in the back of the house. Everybody that grew up under apartheid, and I did, we will all know exactly what that little room in the back of, usually behind the garage, would look like, at least 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And she said every time when she had to go to what she called the big house, she said the moment when I would leave my room and I would step into the big house, as I went over this little staircase and into the house, I would feel this profound sense of inferiority overcoming me, my lessness, Now, that's very deep. That's very painful. That's not to be healed around a barbecue. That's not to be healed by kicking a soccer ball around. And I'm not suggesting that that's what you do. I'm just going back to how you treated the idea of sorry, the way in which you explained it to me. You get my point?
I understand your question, and maybe I'll give two anecdotes or insights to maybe explain better. Firstly, in your story you just told, almost the punchline of your story is her sense of inferiority,
There was a
which is
point of the story.
which is the exact word I used earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't read in books, that I get daily in my interaction with other people.
Yeah.
Like I get that in Mozambique, where there's not a white person in 200 kilometers from anyone. They chased out the Portuguese, and still, when someone does something stupid, they do like this. They say negro não presta, black never change. So the ingrained inferiority, even if there's no white person
Of
in
the
here,
African is what you're saying.
Of black Africans.
Yeah.
It is so, if you get to know enough black Africans and live with them and become their friend and brother and dependent on them, you will have such, like, hundreds of these stories that you've just told. That is the result of a friendship, not a workshop or an outreach or some nonsense. I want to be very practical. When we have this, and I think maybe it's something you and I share, is now this understanding of inferiority and superiority as two diseases of the same tragedy.
Mhm.
Then, when I take people to township, is the first thing I tell the white is you're not allowed to do anything to help anyone. And the best thing you do is you sit on your bum and you listen and you look and you obey. Same as I'm a very good soccer coach, but if I go into a township, I'm a player. And some little 12-year-old kid will get to order me around for an hour. Tell me, hey, Mlungu, 20 push ups, 3 laps around the field. And I just do it like a stupid fool and clown. And that sense of um, actualization or that brief moment of like, oh, a white person is not just here, he's listening to me. And it's in micro
Yeah,
things that is so
yeah.
easy. Like I don't say, let's go and buy cool drink and I buy the Fanta. I wait until they're thirsty and they'll say, let's go and drink something and they'll decide what we drink. So when we have this lens of development as the freedom to choose and power, then interaction, because even because it maybe your question hinted at we must go and talk about the past. My theory is we must first become friends and the trust which comes after respect. And then when we're friends, we'll get to these deep things. And sometimes Afrikaners tell me, why are you playing soccer? You kruip gat daarso by die swartes. Why I play soccer is because they're better at soccer than me. They make me look like a fool, even if you're poor and in a shack. But if I have a dialogue with them, already I'm too strong because of language and the way that I can speak. And they're scared to talk. So that's why hours and hours I play football because it's an equalizer looking like a fool. And it wouldn't be a point to play rugby with them because then I'm the boss again. So we have all these fine small things where we practice practical respect and dignity. And I'm not so woke. Like some people will say, don't go to township. Who do you think you are to convey dignity? Dude, that's just the reality in South Africa. Poor black people are not used to white people eating with them, playing with them, listening to them. And then I think it would be funny to jump into something too deep too soon. Like we don't do that with me. I mean, there's a podcast, so your job is to be invasive. But if someone comes to my house, there's an order.
Yeah.
We talk about the weather and meat and rugby. You don't come in and say, how's your sex life type of thing, or tell me your deepest pain. So
Mhm.
I think Beter-einders, we are very, very focused on long-term friendship creation. And after trust, then these healing things occur, but in a
Yeah.
way that's very lacquer, not
But but
abstract.
but 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 Schalk, at the end of the
Yes.
day, I appreciate what you say, and I understand also what you say. But at the end of the day, it seems to me that there would be a need to somehow package that which you say you do into a sort of a something, a program, whatever you want to call it, that would have a broader application to be something that you can put out there too, because we all need that. We all need
No.
those little moments, but we all don't have the opportunity to go and build up these relationships and build up these friendships to come to the point where our humanity meets and cross and we become enriched by that. How do you package that in a way in which we can use it as a tool that can really bring people together? Yeah, I
Yeah.
know my question sounds probably very clumsy the way I put it, but
No, no, no.
I
These
think
are the
you,
type of things we discuss daily because we want to have scale and impact, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
It must not be a program. And I studied development studies. And the worst thing you can do is turn a person into a participant in a program. We are human
Mhm.
beings. And the
Yeah.
same way my kid is not a participant in a program, he's a human with a family and friends. The same applies to poor black kids. And so with Betereinders from the start, I'll first say it in Afrikaans and then translate. We say, don't join us, don't give us anything. You can't even be a member of Betereinders. It's more an idea than an organization anyway. And we say, all we're asking of someone is, ons Betereinders, ons kla nie, ons doen goed en ons werk saam met almal. We don't moan and complain.
Yeah.
Klakkers. We don't complain. we do stuff. So we don't just talk, we do things. And we are inclusive in working with everyone on purpose. So when I fix a pothole, I try and see who's my enemy, who's far away from me, how can I pull them in and fix the pothole together? Because it's easy to say ons self en Schalk en Johan en Kobus fix die pothole en sê sien dis hoe mense doen. So we are intentional about that, and if I think this disease of Clarkos, of moaning, complaining, making yourself a victim, it's like a cancer that has destroyed the pride of the Afrikaner and make people from young and old scared. And everyone wants to move to Western Cape. So there's something very disloyal to me about people spreading fear and complaining and this. I think that if you ask me what to do on a larger scale, if we just had the discipline to stop being pathetic and complain every day, while we are the ones with the solar panel on the roof or the witbrood under the arm, if we can just stop that, I think we would already create a much different atmosphere around white people and Afrikaners, even globally. Our campaigns have really been fruitful about how much we complained for the last, and it's been 10 years, by the way. And I don't want my kids to grow up like that, like they I'm too arrogant and Windgat to have that culture. So if there's one thing I would say to anyone to do is stop complaining on the one hand and look for the wokes talk about microaggressions. Look for micro respect with every interaction that you have. And it's so endearing, you know. I've got tannies in my NG Kerk. They say, Schalk, I like what you're saying, but where do I find a black friend? And then I laughed because I say there's 60 million of them. Normally we complain and say there's too many black people. Now we can't find one to be a friend with. So there are many opportunities close to us without going to township or be as funny as Schalk. And if we live with open eyes, open hearts, I think trillions of people will come across your way um, daily, where you can practice this rhythm of really seeing each other and learning to like each other. And let me just be clear, that is 80% of black people I love. There are corrupt politicians, there are criminals, murderers, there's people who open the boot of their polo and drink and make noise in the park and pollute. I don't like them at all. I don't want to be their friend. They're clowns. They're killing our country. So when I talk about the goodness of black people, I'm referring to 80% of black people in South Africa that is not criminal, that is not destroying everything. So, and I think maybe something that's worth mentioning is our tribe, with all the complaining, and some of it is strategic complaining, has turned the failures of the ANC into a failure of blackness. So now when I see a taxi driving bad, it's black people making chaos. When I see government stealing, it's black people stealing. And I think that's not fair to the 70% or 80% of black people that's not responsible and that suffer even more because of all of that than me. So I'm not naive, but the focus of our chat isn't to complain about the ANC. I'm just saying I can be very stubborn when someone behaves like a stupid. I'm not then a polite guy smiling at all black people. I can say, dude, you know, I can. So there's sometimes there's a hardness, because right is right and wrong is wrong. So we deal with all these contradictions every day. Yeah, and sometimes I get it right and sometimes I get it wrong. But yeah.
I hear what you say, but the only thing that worries me about what you say is that it's all these microscopic things that you're talking about, microscopic interactions between people, and I'm all absolutely. I don't believe that there's a white person in South Africa that would be in principle against the idea of, you know, putting the hand out there and try to cooperate or to try to share our humanity and support each other.
No,
I talk about.
you're wrong
You say
there.
no.
You're very wrong.
Yeah.
You're very wrong. I would say half my tribe's Afrikaner. They
Don't.
will reach out once a year or they will reach out here and there, but they
Mhm.
fundamentally do not want black people near them. And the test is when you drive into Kruger National Park for your holiday and you see there's a black family in the house next to your house. I would say half my tribe is not excited when they see that. They don't want to try and have this closeness. They want to be next to each other, separate, and then on occasion we'll do a visit to the other church or help someone that's in need. Very seldom, but I think what's made a comeback the past 10 years is really an unapologetic preference to live apart from each other. And it's even same among black people. There's some Zulus that will say, or Sutus that will say, please, I don't want any Zulus in my life. They're violent and rude and stupid.
Yeah.
Me, I've got my Sutu friends and it's enough. So I don't, I think our country has become, over the past 10 years, very, very tribal again, and we'll call it federalism or devolution of power, all kinds of smart words, but it all boils down to a preference of apartness rather than intertwinedness. And I don't mean it in a bad way. That's just how I
Yeah.
read the reality, and that's what our research that we did, the poll, reflects that type of thing.
Is that natural?
I think it's very natural. I think the animal in us wants to do that. And then you need something supernatural, whether it's
But
a
you know what I mean
Jesus
when I
or
say when I ask the question, Schalk, when I say, "Is that natural?" Is that something that has been almost nurtured genetically into
yes.
us that
It's
separate us through hundreds of years? I
It's
know I spoke to somebody else who
yeah,
said the other day to me, make this really huge claim that a scientist made is that this is embedded so deeply in our genetics that we're not even aware of it.
yeah,
So,
I agree. It's biological. It's biological, and if I open my New
but then we've got a
Testament,
huge problem.
we do. I mean, the main story of I'm a Christian, and the main problem with Jesus was he was going around in every day and month talking about how we should learn from and be friends with the Samaritans. And the Samaritans for the Jews were like the Nigerians and the South Africans, and he got killed for it. So, and that's 2,000 years ago, and you can just open your Bible and see that Gaza, Israel has been playing off for centuries. So that is biological. That is how we are if we choose to be animals. Unless there's some kind of idea that a human is not an animal. But you must be careful because if we're animals, then fair play, strongest survive. So if someone can kill you, rape you, steal from you, we're animals. So then there's no social construct. There's no higher ideals of humanity. So if you want to play into the biology of being animals, okay, fair play. Good luck. But that's not how I understand us as creatures of being human in the image of God, which has a demand for shared humanity. So I think you can choose, but it's very, very natural to
Yeah.
drift into soort.
I had a discussion with Rudy Swanepoel a couple of weeks ago, and we went to Genesis chapter 9. I wrote it down for this discussion as well. You will know it as well as he does. Uh, I don't know the Bible that well, I have to confess. But verse 25, cursed be Canaan, servant of servants shall be. And Leviticus chapter 1, verse 19, you shall not let your cattle breed with a different kind. Is that through literally hundreds of years, the imposition of that within your very heart, the depth of your mind, your consciousness, your genetics,
I think,
that,
yeah, I hear you. It's as old as anything, this tribal sense that we have of building a wall around your own town in Germany, and now you do it in midstream or wherever. It's just with us. But I think that's why even secular humanists today will comment on how Christianity changed Western society um, with the total crazy radical um, reality that Jesus Christ brought into the world and higher demands of loving our enemies. So I think, again, I said I'm unapologetic about my faith. And then, even if you're not a religious person, the effect of that Christian society that it had on the ideals of human rights and Western society has been very positive. And I think we've drifted away from it. And we'll have to drift back if we don't want chaos that we see. And why I'm saying it's biological is same thing happening in the UK, in the US, and Europe. We have the same struggle. And I think maybe because the liberals took things too far and became, I don't know what the hell they became, but the idea of togetherness and so was over, and inclusion was overplayed a bit, and there was a resistance to that. But I think the pendulum will swing back soon, actually, to a time again where we realize that
What would
as
make that
humans,
pendulum swing back, Skull?
maybe I don't want to talk, get in trouble for politics, but maybe the end of the Orange Man will play a role because he's the
Hmm.
one that gave rise to the anti-woke movement. He gave a lot of power, and that we see, everywhere around us in South Africa. We've been experiencing the
Well,
results of this
we've
cultural
had all
pushback.
of this. We've had all of this way before Donald Trump came on the scene. Donald Trump just gave new sort of impetus to all of that.
He
But
gave
the call
license
for the
to,
let's just let's bring it back to just practical on the ground. What's happened in South Africa in the last 30 years, with the demolition, destruction of the rainbow ideal, the collapse of the rainbow ideal, and alongside that, the growing chorus of voices that are calling for devolution of power and then for self-governance, etc., etc. Some people even talk about balkanization of South Africa. That's stuff that's been
yeah,
talked about way before Trump came on
totally.
the scene.
When I'm talking about the effect that Trump had on us as a culture and a group and even as a church, is he gave license to be rude. So
Hmm.
we had those things in our hearts always, but we had to monitor ourselves and even in
Yeah,
some instances hide things. Like let's say, for example, calling a black person a baboon. We had it in us, but we didn't dare because of liberal wokeness or whatever. And Trump took away the wokeness and the politeness and the political correctness and gave people license to say whatever
yeah,
you want
yeah,
unapologetically. And that is new because there was a type of a restraint since 94 until I would say about 8 years ago.
yeah,
Where people didn't just say what they want and share any video about monkeys, or I'm not talking about his, I'm talking about, yeah, there's
yeah,
baboons with EFF berets on my Facebook feed daily.
yeah,
So, but that license to be that blatantly provocative and unapologetic, I think that is a global phenomenon that gave that anti-political correctness surge, and I think that will come down again. It's just a bit of a anti-reaction because of excesses from the other side, I would describe it. But I'm not talking about anything. Sin didn't originate with Trump. I'm just talking about how we speak with each other and about each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
And then your comment about the balkanization and devolution of power, blah blah blah. For that, for a certain group, it feels like a big voice, but for the South African majority, that is such a micro, small voice.
yeah. But
And
it's
and,
a,
and
but it's a, it's a, it is a very small voice because we talk about it's a white voice essentially, so that makes it already a what 2, 3, 4% voice. If you
yeah,
break
and
it
cut
then
that
down
in
to it's a
half
right
again,
wing voice,
or
then we can half it again to
yeah,
0,1 or 0,2% voice at the end
yeah.
of the day. I'd love to see the polls out on something like that, and nobody seems to be willing
No,
enough to do
I
some.
can give you one. When we just did a poll that came out in December, and it's just a poll. It's not a PhD, but it's an independent poll with 1,000 white Afrikaners, and
Yeah,
the result was staggering. 70% said we should aim for, in Afrikaans, the word was selfbeskikking.
yeah,
But then
yeah,
it seems that people don't mean I want to live in Oranje with self-beskikking. Some of them just understand it to mean I want to be able to fix my own potholes. So, but that tendency is definitely growing. And I think if you want to be true to that and give up on the South African flag and give up on the Springboks and give up on the country, I think it's a very, I want to say sad, but it's actually cowardly because, like my dad farmed in KwaZulu Natal. Let's say you get the Western Cape or you get to Oranje You can never give up on the dream of South Africa, because just think of your fellow white farmers with farms across the country. What are they going to do? We can't abandon them by saying we're going to have 30 towns and we're going to fight to keep them nice and the rest go to hell. We have to keep fighting for the whole thing. And I know it's not popular among certain people to say this, but for me, there's no option. And what's funny is we want now this devolution of power among white people. But when we were in charge, and you're now older than me, so maybe you can help me. Did we have a fairly central power structure, or did each province white people do their own things? Like
Yeah,
what we claim we want to do now. When we were
yeah,
in charge, did we let have each province of whites during apartheid have their own autonomy? And did
yeah,
we
yeah,
believe in municipal self-rule, or did PV and the central
yeah,
government and the structures, like, it doesn't seem to me like there's something a little bit dishonest about the whole conversation, I find.
yeah, yeah,
Personally,
yeah. No,
that is not my areas of expertise. It's just stuff that I wonder about.
yeah, and I think a lot of it, it seems to me, that's my impression from afar, is actually stoked by the collapse of South Africa, by the mess that the African National Congress has brought us to, by the fact that they have actually ruthlessly stolen from the country, broken their own promises to the people. That a lot of that is kind of like an angry reaction to. I did a little bit of
I agree
research
with
the other
that.
day, and my research showed me that there is not one, if we talk about devolution of power, and I mentioned this, I think, to Adams van Sale, if we talk about devolution of power, there's not one single municipality in South Africa where you have a white majority in. Not even one single municipality. I think Mossel Bay comes about the closest with something like 37%. So the answer is just, the question is always just, but how can you ever turn this into a real practical something? And nobody has given me the answer. I'll go and mention this to you. I spoke to Corneille Mulder, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said in absolutely no uncertain terms that it is very high on their agenda. I think Section 235, it's called, the right to cultural uh, space, or whatever the case might be, and that there are talk about creating such an independent space somewhere in the Northern Cape or something like that.
Yeah.
To be
And
honest,
and
I
you know
don't.
what? Yeah.
It seems just a minority of a minority of a minority who's with a huge big megaphone, and I think, if I may say so, my impression also is that there's a lot of money to be made on fear.
Yeah, there I'm with you totally. But what I do want to say is, if they want to do that, it's like the same as moving to America. If you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah,
Blessings, good luck. But the
yeah,
rest of us, for what I would call patriotic South Africans that mean it when we sang Ons vir jou Suid-Afrika. En that's Suid-Afrika. Ons didn't say ons vir jou, ons volksstaat. Ons vir jou Suid-Afrika. If we still sing the stem at the Voortrekker Monument, dan sing jy nog steeds ons vir jou Suid-Afrika. Then stop singing that if you're not willing to live and die for your country. So they can do whatever they want. Regtig, go for it. I know people who's doing it. Go for it, please. I lived in Mozambique. Anyone can do what they want. Go for it. But the rest of us will have to, in a very grown-up, pragmatic, long-term way, fight to have a South Africa that can firstly get beyond our racial shortcut theater, so that we can get to the real problems of fixing the lives of ordinary South Africans. And at the moment, a lot of these side shows is fueling the racial theater, and it's keeping us away from doing the job that we must do, no matter how long it takes.
yeah, yeah. I want to end this discussion, Schalk, with a bit of a difficult question. And I know that a lot of people also get angry when I even ask this question. I get called all sorts of names. On the one hand, the so-called lefties are angry with me because I am platforming the guys on the right wing on my platform, as much as I really hope to platform also people on the so-called left wing. But here's the question that I always that I just cannot get out of my mind. While we're having all these discussions, and I've said this on a number of occasions on this podcast of mine, while you and I are sitting talking here tonight, nearly 14 million South Africans will go to bed hungry. Imagine that. While you and I are sitting here having our little dissection of where we are and where we ought to go in the future, etc., etc., 60% of our people live in poverty. More than 60% of our black youth cannot find work. Now, this is the point I want to get to, and this is the kind of difficult part where people really get angry with me. To fix this, our political environment tells us we just simply have to undo the screws on the wheels of the free market. We just got to create a greater, freer market. We simply have to make sure that the free market operates best. And the African National Congress is being accused of standing in the way of that free market. But the World Bank, the IMF, even South African economists will tell you that if we want to bring poverty down in South Africa, which is our biggest problem in South Africa, we would need an year-on-year economic growth of at least 6 to 8% for the next 20 years. That's never happened anywhere in the world. That has never happened anywhere in the world. And the examples they show you are lies as well, because it's happened only once. There has been a pretty brutal kind of interference by central government, and all, whether it's Singapore or any of these other countries, before you got this market rolling to get to these kind of percentages that you need to bring your economy into a shape that you can feed your people. So the question is double. What do we do? We talk about the dynamics that you and I discuss now within the context of our discussion, but the big kind of dark shadow or dark cloud at the end of the day seems to me that that's the one single discussion that we're not having, is how do we do that economically to build a South Africa where you don't have a situation that 14 million people will go to bed tonight without food.
Yeah. I don't know who on earth would be angry about this question, because it's the most fundamental question that we have to answer every day of our lives, so that we can look our own children and black people's children in the eye with integrity. So it says, I would literally like to know who's bothered by this question, because that is why we do Betereinders, and that is why I'm in the church trying to mobilize people. So the answers, obviously we can go into macroeconomic discussions, and I've even gone back to read Wealth of Nations from Adam Smith, and even him, the father of the free market, over and over in that thick book, will rely on a philanthropic humanity that will take care of the poor because of the power of the free market. So there's nothing like just plain selfishness again. But what helps me, there's economic growth that can happen without the bottom 14 million ever being not hungry. So what helped my way of understanding is, in the 90s, end of the 90s, when I went to live in Mozambique, it was literally, statistically, the poorest country in the world. So the economic indicators were shot,
Yeah,
but people were not hungry, because each person had like a small plot, a rugby field size, and they
yeah,
farmed. They even exported the maize from those little farmers, and each people were not hungry. They were happy, and they were poor as hell.
yeah,
And I lived in that. I lived off 2,000 rand a month for 7 years, eating more pap than any Afrikaner should ever eat in his life. We were happy. We were full without anything. We grew what we ate, and so I think there's shortcut solutions. For example, let's first fix hunger. And between our big farmers and our small farmers and unused land, we can do magic, and we can stop hunger. We can build houses, chop chop. There shouldn't be shacks, but there's no, the politicians, stouters, they want to keep people like that, because then they're dependent on voting and getting KFC and t-shirts. Um, I think trying to get the economy growing might be a result of other things. And if we are, firstly, just let's just sort out all our race nonsense and stop fueling that. But then, like fixing hunger, Afrikaners can play a massive part in that. And that's why as Betereinders we farm together, even in the city. Now in my yard, there's millies, there's sweet potatoes. We farm in the townships vertical farming, horizontal farming. We farm together, and it's amazing. That workshop you asked for earlier, if we farm together, it creates even a better bond than soccer or eating fit cooks or whatever. So sorting out hunger, housing, I think those are more attainable goals. And from that base, hopefully people will wake up and realize how they have to vote. Because without voting patterns changing, and it's changing. And so we all seen ANC going from 70 to 40. Things are changing. Well, now is it going to go to MK, whatever? But I think long term, and many Afrikaners has given up that black people will ever be emotionally healed enough and clever enough to vote smarter. But that's the only hope. If the masses don't change their voting patterns, we'll always be fighting a losing battle, but that's still okay. While the ship is going down, we can plant and play and try and get as many out of hunger as we can. And there's big white farmers that's doing incredible work in with regard to that. So I think we can have big ambitious goals. Um, but the economy won't fix itself with the current corruption and mafia state that we have. And like I'm so into Mkwanazi. I don't know there where you live. Are you following General Nhlanhla Mkwanazi?
Some
I
of
want
it.
six. I want that to be a public holiday, and all our commissions. If we don't get rid of the rot, the economy won't, in a broader sense, thrive ever. But we
Yeah.
can change the dynamics within our struggling economy, so that the poorest of the poor don't take such a big hit of our failures.
Schalk van Heerden, thank you very much for this.
Been a pleasure, Johan.